it is remarkable how we continue to tell the same stories again and again. And I think it was the first time I ever really understood that we were telling the same stories again and again is when I read Sid Field's book.
Yeah.
That was the first time I was like, I think late, maybe first year out of college or out of high school, excuse me. And I read it, I was like, wait a minute, you mean all movies are like, and then you start going back in your head of like, this movie did it too, and this movie did it too, and this movie did it too. Yeah. There is a structure that goes all the way back to the Greeks, and obviously farther back, but the Greeks really took it and ran with it. Yeah. There is a structure in poetics, basically. It's
Aristotle's Poetics, and he was the first one who said that a story should have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and we get our 3-act structure from that. Now, what's interesting there is a lot of people say, well, that's just common sense or whatever, but that was not how stories were being told before then. Really, they were being told in 2-act structures, and if you go see a play today, most plays still have 2 acts. So the idea of telling a story in 3-act structure was pretty revolutionary because it used to be that a single actor would be on the stage with a comedy mask or a tragedy mask. Mm-hmm. And you would basically have the actor, portraying this story all themselves. And then we had a Greek tragedian who writes this idea of adding a second actor to the mix, and having 2 actors, one that wears the comedy mask and one that wears the tragedy mask. And then we have another Greek tragedian that adds this idea of the Greek chorus who stand up behind the actors and they sing what's happening sort of in the backstory. All these developments allowed us to start being able to tell more and more complex stories. We could have never gotten to something like the Avengers, which is this long, epic story that without advancing incrementally into how stories are told in more and more complex ways. The Avengers is tremendously complex. And sometimes we like to say, well, yeah, that's the way a story should be told. But it took processes for us to get there in order to have these multi-hour stories that audiences could follow. So I think Aristotle was really onto something. Let me just also say, and I'd be interested to know, how you feel about this. Mm-hmm. You're someone who lives in this world. I feel like, oftentimes it's become sort of in vogue to sort of trash any ideas about structure in modern storytelling. I would say this, though. It's not about formula, but it is about form. Writers are the only group of artists that really trash the idea of structure sometimes. You never have musicians that come in and say, I'm going to write a song and I'm going to create a new chord that no one's ever heard before. I'm going to not use the chords in notes. You never have an artist that comes in and tries to create new colors that no one's ever seen before. You never have an architect that says, I'm going to design a house with no floor and no ceiling and no windows and no walls. But it doesn't mean that every painting looks alike. It doesn't mean that every song sounds alike or that every house looks alike. I think we have to understand that structure is necessary for us to be able to build something that resonates with an audience. But it doesn't mean it's the only form of storytelling out there. Mm-hmm. There are stories that just explore a character, who a character is, and trying to get down deep into that. But I think sometimes we like to just throw paint up on the wall in whatever sticks. We say, well, that's what I meant to do. I'm not going to be bound by these things. And sometimes I think it's laziness more so than anything else. But I'd be curious to know what your take is on that.
I have strong feelings about this because because writers in general or screenwriters specifically, anybody. It's not like I listen to John Williams' score and I say, oh, I can go do that because I listened to it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for filmmakers and screenwriters. Like, oh, I watch movies. Oh, I read a screenplay. I guess I can go do that. There's not. It's like the level of entry or the barrier to entry is so low for screenwriters, meaning that you need a laptop, final draft, and an idea, and some basic understanding on how to structure or format a screenplay, and you're automatically a screenwriter. And it's not that. And when I see filmmakers or screenwriters start saying, "Oh well, structure," or that "save the cat" thing, or all this kind of stuff is not good, I look at it differently in the sense that I feel that a lot of that's insecurity, because it's insecurity and it's ego in their own mind, because they're like, I can do it better. I don't need structure. I'm like, you do need, man. You need a blueprint to build a house, man, and not every house looks the same.
That's right.
You know, it's the bottom line. You just need a blueprint, and that blueprint can change dramatically. You know, you could have 5 doors in the front of the house if you want to, and the bathroom could be on the roof. It's fine if you want to do that, but you still need to have the rules of the game in order to play. And I think structure allows you to do that. When I write, I love structure dramatically, because it's like mile markers for me on where I can like put things and I can move those mile markers when I want to, but they're there, you know, and they just kind of like, okay, here I can hang my hat on this, I can hang my hat onto that, and so on. And I think it's so important for screenwriters to understand that structure is not an enemy. It's actually a friend of yours. And when you look at these stories like Joseph Campbell's, you know, work, and the hero's journey, like, look, we all know, anyone listening to this should know the hero's journey. The basic, it has been beaten and beaten and beaten to death ever since Joseph Campbell came up, or at least presented it to the world. It had already been there. He just packaged it and presented it to the world. We all know a variation of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Is the hero's journey for every single story? I don't think so. I mean, try to throw the hero's journey on a detective story. It's going to be really tough.
That's right.
You know, it's a really tough scenario.